An FBI agent was sitting at his desk. It was 10 p.m. It was raining. He was studying a unique case. The agent had never worked on such a thing. There were reports that a rich family had disappeared from their home in the middle of a Romanian forest. The case had almost been dismissed by the local police. They couldn't explain it, and besides, no one knew the members of the family, so the news was not published in the newspapers. The FBI agent had been called because the police, a few days earlier, had found the bodies of the victims at the banks of a river. They were in a state of decomposition and had no internal organs. It was a large family. There were 8 people, all dead. Going up the river, they discovered that it was connected to the sewer system of the old house where the family lived. But there was more. According to the report written by the police, the old house had been abandoned for years, uninhabited and deserted, and in the nearby areas it was known as a haunted house. The FBI agent, who was known for his sometimes too impulsive courage, decided to go investigate that same night in that house. He ate something quickly, and at 11 p.m., he was already in the car driving to the house. The forest was dense, making it difficult for the vehicle to move. It stopped raining. Just a few sounds of thunder remained in the distance. The agent arrived in front of the house. It was a mansion surrounded by mighty walls with a heavy gate. He got out of the car and walked over to the gate. The house was dark, lit only by the moon. No light. Deafening silence. Occasionally, he could hear wolves in the night, like werewolves. The FBI agent noticed that there was a camera above the gate. He opened the gate and entered. Suddenly, the gate closed behind him. Around the house, there was something like a river of putrid water that gave off a hellish smell. It looked like an abandoned house. Not too worried, he looked over to the house looking at an old car that looked like it hadn't been used for years. Suddenly, the bridge closed. He couldn't escape. At that moment, the agent realized that there was someone in the house, that someone had seen him enter and trapped him. Frightened, he went to the front door, waiting for some noise, but nothing. Woke up in a cold, damp cell. He had been shot with a rubber bullet. But who was that old man? Then he realized that he had taken his gun. He was unarmed, outside the cell, on the ground. He found a lockpick, with which he managed to open the cell door. Maybe that old man had lost it. As he went out, he saw a room with 2 columns. It looked like a puzzle. The agent wondered what they wanted to do with him. He didn't know if they wanted to kill him. He continued down a corridor to realize that there was another cell, and inside, a human skeleton. There was no doubt. The house had been occupied by the killers of the family who lived in the house. But who were they? Upstairs, he could hear voices, grunts. Were they monsters? The agent then turned. With his heart in his throat, he threw himself towards that tall, thin, pale-faced ghost. But when he reached it, it was gone. The agent was terrified. If he hadn't jumped on that ghost, making it disappear, he would have fainted with fear. That was a terrifying look. It was Slendrina. The agent, who had always been a fan of the paranormal over the years, knew Slendrina. He knew it was a ghost haunting old houses and schools, but he thought that they were just legends. Besides, he hadn't heard of Slendrina for a long time. It was like she had disappeared. The agent was right. After the disgrace of the castle due to her curse, Slendrina had completely disappeared with Liev, Slendrina's husband, and her mother. But then, why could Slendrina go around the house, attacking her victims? Nobody knew it. Granny had decided to move to this house, once inhabited by a wealthy family, to remain isolated from the rest of the world. And, with the help of Grandpa, she had killed all the members of the family, mutilating their bodies. Then, they threw the corpses in the river of the sewage system. She had brought some objects from her first home before finally abandoning it, like the table, the bed, the mannequin, some furniture, Slendrina's cradle, and of course, the teddy bear. But why wasn't her diary there? Granny understood that the teddy bear was the key to awaken and summon the ghost of Slendrina. In fact, the book contained the story and all the secrets of Slendrina and her family, but it was not enough to evoke her spirit. Sometimes the diary could only remember faces, sounds, words of the family. So the teddy bear had kept the essence of Slendrina. It was a symbol of love between Granny and Slendrina. Today, Slendrina wanders around the house and helps Granny and Grandpa haunt and kill anyone who comes near that place. But one thing is clear. When you put her teddy bear in her cradle, she vanishes. She calms down by appeasing that urge to murder, remembering her happy childhood before the curse changed everything. The agent continued down the corridor, and he walked up the stairs. He opened the door. Behind the door, there was Granny waiting for him. Darkness. The FBI agent woke up once more in the cell. Blood was dripping from his head. Why hadn't she killed him? What did they want? This time he ran out and headed for the stairs. The door was open. He peered and saw Granny walking out of the house. He went upstairs towards the first floor. The house was incredibly tidy, neat and clean. It didn't look abandoned. He found objects scattered here and there. It looked like some kind of macabre game. Granny and Grandpa, in fact, had worked out puzzles like they had always done. It was impossible to escape. Suddenly, the old man, Grandpa, came out of a corner and shot him in the chest. The agent was dragged by Granny and Grandpa to this cell, again. While he was in the daze, Granny told him,
"Slendrina's family is coming back."
And they left him in the cell. When he came to, he immediately looked for the exit. He went to the kitchen and went out through the door facing the garden. It was cold outside. His heart leapt when Slendrina appeared behind him. He looked away immediately. Then he looked at the guillotine. That execution tool made him shiver. Did they want to cut off his head? Here they are. Grandpa and Granny were advancing towards him. With his heart in his throat, the agent entered the house, and, with all his might, he tried to escape from those two monsters. He ran upstairs to the last floor, and then he climbed the stairs to the roof. He could hear their heavy footsteps behind him. He reached the roof. He couldn't see anything. He couldn't see outside the walls, not even his car. Everything was shrouded in darkness. It was like another world. Then, above the chimney, a large crow pecked him in the eye, making him lose his balance. The agent fell off the roof. He barely woke up. He was confused. They were there, watching him. They had put him in the old car in the garden. The agent had a broken leg, and he was covered in blood. There was nothing more to be done. Granny put an explosive in the car, and they slowly moved away. The car exploded, burning the agent alive, that in the house had only found death. Days went by. No one wondered what happened in that house. The police found the gate open and found no one. In the report, they wrote that it was just an abandoned house with no evidence, so they left it closed in the middle of the woods. They didn't check it very much. The police had other problems to think about, and after all, they have had enough. Actually, they were terrified of going to that house again, so far from everything and everyone in the middle of nowhere. The truth is that Slendrina's family knew how to hide and how to scare people. Slendrina, Granny, and Grandpa are still there, ready to defeat and torture anyone who goes into that house alone.